damn, I want that thing. My expectations were here, and then LUMIX just break, like right before they break. I'm like, that's nice. And at this point, I think it's just being completely spoiled. And the overarching thing with LUMIX is there's a tool in here for everybody.
LUMIX just launched the brand new S1 Mark II, which is a beast of a hybrid video camera. But is this what real filmmakers want? Well, today I'm joined with Cesar Lorca, who's one of my personal favorite filmmakers who shoots on LUMIX. And everything he kind of creates is like a pure masterpiece, truthfully. Now, it doesn't even really matter what camera you put in his hands to achieve the results. But specifically in today's episode, we're going to be diving into what features that he absolutely loves from a filmmaker's perspective and being a pro filmmaker, what he really loves about this camera, and a couple things that he has gripes with. So without further ado, Cesar.
What's going on, dude?
Dude, what a face. I love it.
Yeah, there's plenty of there in there for you.
I think context for my episode, I've never shared this on the podcast yet. So context for my podcast listeners, every time when I'm doing the intro, the guests are doing faces during that time for thumbnail. So it's great.
Yeah, it feels so silly.
So anyways, Cesar, just get a little context for my audience. Who are you? And then more specifically, what do you primarily shoot?
My name is Cesar Lorca, and I'm a filmmaker based out of Miami, Florida. And I guess I shoot a ton of sport. And then for my real job is like sport. Worked with a ton of big athletes. Love it. I used to work out a ton, so I fell into the world like that. And then slowly I started just, started falling in love with cameras, started liking that a little more, and started reviewing stuff. Got a little creative with it and just got the ball rolling like that. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
And you filmed with the World's Strongest Man recently, didn't you?
Yep. I've worked with him.
And then you also filmed F1 as well.
Yep. So that I think that solidifies that I'm in the sports world, right?
Right. But like that's like top level, I would say, sports world.
Yeah.
Is what you're filming a lot, which I think is really cool and like speaks to, you being a filmmaker and giving you the credibility before we're even getting into this episode. So I guess a little bit of context before we fully dive into hearing your initial impressions of the LUMIX S1 Mark II. Love to hear kind of your journey. What brought you to LUMIX and why do you still shoot on LUMIX ever since then?
So I think it's been almost 9 or 10 years that I've been shooting now. I remember I started a business when I was in college where I invented this grip for the bench, and I was in college trying to pay for everything, working in a Mexican restaurant, doing Uber Eats and everything, and I couldn't afford to pay a photographer every time I needed stuff for the brand and the launch. So I ended up picking up a crappy little Canon 70D with the money that I was able to like shovel up after everything, and started shooting on that. Realized that the camera wasn't really good for video; it was pretty good for photo. And I started watching a ton of YouTube videos, dude. And that was like the era where the GH5 was the holy grail of filmmaking. And everybody's just pushing that thing. And I was like, damn, I want that thing, So I started saving up my money, everything. My credit was so bad. I got my credit denied at Best Buy when I was trying to buy it. It was like the world didn't want me to get this GH5. Like, it was like that. And then, eventually I was able to save enough money. I got that GH5 and... dude, everything started with that camera. I got my first job with it after making like the videos for the product, and just started snowballing into the sports world through that because that's all I really cared about back then. So that's like a little cliff note. Yeah,
it's cool still having guests who have shot prior on the old LUMIX cameras that didn't shoot on the face detect autofocus camera. I think eventually guests are slowly going to be coming, and already have been coming on my channel, who've never experienced what LUMIX was before the phase detect era. So it's cool to hear that. So you went from the GH5, you transitioned to full frame, right? Before the S5 II and 2X?
Yeah.
You already had an S1H, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I went from the GH5 for a couple years, and then when the S1H came out, I picked that up within, I think it was 6 months of it coming out, pretty quickly. So it was nice. It was a huge difference. Like, I remember seeing the Bokeh, and I had the 24-70 S Pro, and I was like, this looks and feels completely different than a Micro Four Thirds camera right now.
I think that's one video I want to eventually do on my channel, is like the difference of transitioning from Micro Four Thirds to full frame, because I remember myself, like anytime I did photos or anything like that, always thinking like, oh, I need to shoot an f2 for couples, yada yada, because bokeh looked like an f4. But like the reality of like everything switching in terms of the depth of field and being like, oh, I'm missing like whenever I did photo shoots or anything like that, or missing like I was missing my focus because not purely, or I was missing, the focus point because my aperture was incorrect in like all of those settings. It was a completely mindset shift. So I guess flash forwarding, you've been shooting on the S5 IIX now for like 2 years. I think we both entered the Backstage Creators Group around the same time of February 2023. So that's great memories. We were both on that initial call. And now we were both just in Austin, Texas for the launch of the LUMIX S1 Mark II. So I'd love to hear kind of your initial impressions of getting that camera, and what did you love about it, and like go from there, your initial impressions.
Initial impressions, I'm going to be honest, Lumix has been dropping so many cameras as of late over the last 2 years that I honestly didn't think they would be making strides in the way that they were. So I wasn't really expecting like this big bomb of a camera when I arrived to Texas. And the second I got my hands on this thing and I got in that meeting and I heard the new things that they're putting in here, my expectations were here, and then Lumix just flew right over it, you know? The frame rates, the codecs, the color fidelity, the autofocus, everything that they put in here just blew my mind. Like, I have my S5 IIX and I have this now, and usually when I find a camera, I stick to it. Like the S1ii, I ran it into the ground until the S5 IIX came, and I think this is the one that's just gonna completely replace it. And for me, my favorite part about it has been the softer, kind of more natural look that it has. Like the S5 IIX has like a little sharper edge to it, and a lot of people have brought that up to me, and I was like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, right? And now that I saw this image, it just makes more sense for me to use this, and that color is just that look is just so, I don't know, inviting. I love it. It makes me feel warm.
It makes you feel warm. I love that, especially with Aerilog also coming this summer too.
Yep.
With that softer tone, softer texture. I've heard a lot of people saying like the GH7 Aerilog felt more like a gimmick because it's on micro four thirds, very obviously. But now that it's coming to all the full frame S1 cameras, it's kind of like, oh, Lumix means business, you know? So I'd love to hear kind of, before we get into more about what your favorite feature is and different things like that, what do you love about this camera? And I do want a hot take. What's something that you still have a gripe with this camera?
Would you ask? I'm sorry, the first part?
No, what do you love about this camera? I know you already mentioned a plethora of things, but like what's that top thing for you? And then what do you not so much?
Top thing that I love about it, I think has to be definitely the image that comes out of it from now. It's beautiful, delicious. I love that I can mold it and shape it into whatever color I like, because I like pushing my images almost to the point where they break, like right before they break. I'm like, that's nice, you know? That's kind of my thing. So what's up?
Are you shooting 6K open gate most of the time, or what are you shooting in?
Just regular 4K 24. The majority of my work is always like just 4K 24. 90% of my stuff is 4K 24. And then if I need to go slower, I just do 60. And if you look at my videos, you called it out. If I wanted to be even slower, because I didn't do anything with 60, I just put that warp stabilizer in there with the AI thing from DaVinci. So
that's mad.
Yeah, I'm okay with breaking the image sometimes.
You know, that's mad. Because I was curious then if since you are someone who does push the colors a lot more than most other people do, I was curious if you saw a difference between 422 versus 420 in any of your color. I
did. I think that's where my con is. I think the difference that I noticed, first of all, I saw a lot of noise in the 4K 120 in the shadow areas, like a ton. And also in that codec, the image looked a little softer, like a little mushier. I don't know how to like put it. It's not like tack, like the regular 422. So that's where I started to notice like a little bit of the kind of warping in the colors. Was a little harder to like shift it into places that I wanted without it like breaking down on me, you know? But that's like the only cons that I really have with this camera. Everything else I could deal with, you know?
And you are, though, for a majority of people that aren't like pushing the colors like you are literally like stretching those colors like to edge, and like trying to get the most out of your colors. But so typically, are you shooting in all intra 422?
All intra. That's the higher bit rate, right? Like I'm on the other one.
Long op 422.
Yeah, I hardly ever use intra. Yeah, it's everybody says that to me. I'm like, they're like, why aren't you shooting all intra? I'm like, it's a lot of data. I'm a little lazy. I don't want to blow my computer up.
We're recording this podcast on 3.3K open gate light, so or MP4 light. So if you throw a LUT to me or throw color on this, because I know you have your own color preferences, we'll see how much this image breaks down on your side.
Yeah, you just see it just freaking explode. There's like blobs everywhere.
That'd be kind of funny. So I guess I'd like to hear then, since we got our hands on this camera, it's been almost, I think now 4 weeks since we got this camera on our hands, the launch day, all of that. How has the LUMIX S1 Mark II been fitting in your own personal workflow?
Dude, it's fitting like a glove, if I'm being honest. Everything that I've already needed just got elevated. So there's not, I don't know. I feel like after this camera, there's not much that I really need anymore. Just the full frame, the color. The frame rates, like I keep saying, like it's everything, the body style, the weight. I love the weight. I think we've had this discussion before that some people love lighter rigs. I think you and I agree on heavier rigs. So having
I think out of the group of the backstage creators, you and I are like the rig bros who like have our cameras super rigged up.
Yeah.
I think you would like the Rigged Pro. I'm telling you.
It looks nice, man.
Like shameless plug, like my camera rig is right over here off camera. Like, this thing looks legit.
Yeah, I see. Every time you've posted it, I'm like, man, I might have to get one of these.
Bro, it's $300 and that's worth every penny.
Yeah, I think I'm just running that small rig, little L-shaped bracket thing. Just slides right in,
Yeah, it's great. I mean, yeah, that's a downside because you lose kind of that flippy up screen when you do that. But at the same time, both of us are pin on monitors, The only thing you do lose is if you do want 32-bit flow audio with the XLR2 adapter. Can't really do that with this camera, which that's obviously a bummer. But anyways, so it's been in your personal workflow. It's been like a glove. It's been it's your everyday camera now for professional work. I guess there is a couple things that I am curious. What's one thing that you wish they added specifically for this camera that you do feel like it's missing? Obviously, Feds Detect, autofocus in 4K 120, like you were saying, things like that.
Definitely that would be cool. At this point, I don't even think I want anything else. Like, I get so many people always wanting stuff inside of my comments when I make these videos, and at this point, I think it's just being completely spoiled. And that might be a hot take. Like, I think, what is it? A shoddy worksman blames their whatever the hell your tools. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think at this point the tool is so good that you could just, any problem you have to pin it on the person because they're too good now,
Yeah.
So I don't think I would want anything else. If I say like internal NDs, like, okay, that's cool. Like, that'd be nice to have, but that would just be like another vanity thing to have in this camera. But realistically, for workflow, I think it's perfect where it is for me.
Yeah, I think the next big point that LUMIX will start working on after maybe a cinema camera, which we'll might touch point on towards the end of this episode. But one thing I think they're going to work on towards as next is going to be pro lenses. I think is the big thing. Because they have really good lenses. Don't get me wrong. 24 to 60 on like a cinema rig is sick for how small that lens is. Like, sure, you lose that like 10 mil from the 24 to 70 f2.8, but that lens is chunky, like the LUMIX one. But that 24 to 60, bro, that's so nice.
That's the main lens that I ran for the F1 weekend. So like first day, I think it was, I ran, it was the 20 to 60. Second day, it was the 24 to 200. And then the third day was the 20 to 60 again, I'm pretty sure.
I'm curious, do you have your camera on hand with you?
I do.
I'd be curious if you turned on, because you're saying you're shooting in 4K 24 frames a second. I just don't know what the number is right now. I'd be
Yeah.
curious if you turned on video mode and turned on hybrid zoom for 4K 24 and let us know what does that zoom into with 4K 24, because it's adding digital sharpness. I'm pretty sure it's doing some type of AI technology. We're just going to keep calling it AI, even though technically I don't think that is AI, but it's doing something to the image where it's zooming in a lot more to the image. So you're actually getting more reach, especially in your case scenario where you can be using things like proxy. You can be using hybrid zoom, because I shoot primarily only open gate for everything I do for how my workflow is, so I miss out on using hybrid zoom for video and miss out on using these extra features because I'm shooting in open gate. But since you're someone who shoots primarily more in 4K 24 422, I'd be curious to hear what that hybrid zoom is on that camera. I hopefully gave you enough time to figure it out. Let's see.
Yeah. Let's see 4K.
Cesar's on it right now.
Yeah, I'm
Mission
trying to figure
Impossible
it out.
music is starting to play. Bum,
Oh
bum,
my
dun,
gosh.
dun, dun, dun,
You're
dun,
making me so
dun,
anxious.
dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.
4K
Hybrid
hybrid
zoom. It's on the
zoom.
second page of the video tab.
All right. With the 24 to 70, the big chunky one you were talking about, that obviously has seen
Oh,
better days.
well, I was talking about 24 to 60. So tell me what it's at 60 mil.
Yeah, that one's on that camera that I'm using right now.
Okay, that's fine.
At 60, it's a six. Oh goodness, hold on. 60 roughly. It's about 80.
Yeah, there you go. So you still get that extra, bit of extra room to zoom in if needed. In that sense,
Yeah.
like you can get a 24 to 60 on 4K, you can get that to 24 to 80 in a sense, which is still super cool.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So it's like if you need it, and then for photo mode, I think the 24 to 60, I want to say, turns into a 24 to, I don't know, something wild. But yeah, so I guess kind of transitioning a little bit on, who would you recommend the LUMIX S1 Mark II for, and who do you think should stay away from this camera?
I think I would recommend it to basically anybody who's like an aspiring filmmaker, as long as you have a certain level of experience. I think Lumix has a ton more cameras that are more beginner friendly to be able to get into. I think if you're in like the mid-tier kind of price range where you've got some clients, you could afford this, and you want to take that extra step with the ProRes and all these other things, other tools that these cameras have, I think that's who it should be for. Like those level filmmakers, even some like top level content creators. Like if you're on Instagram, it's like a tiny small package that you could carry around without it being like ridiculously large. Especially if you throw like the 14 to something lens? 14?
Yeah, I don't know. 1428 maybe. I know they have the 16 to 35.
Yeah, the really tiny one. Like that one's been my Instagram kind of real setup, and it's been working perfectly. And throwing it on this camera just looks so beautiful. So, and yeah, I think that would be the perfect kind of person for this, because I think some of these things, if you're just like entry level, you don't really need. So.
Right, yeah. This is a lot of camera, and I think it's been interesting, and I'm curious to hear your take on this as well. Like, I feel like just with Lumix in general, I hear a lot of people being like, oh, I want this one feature, for example, like, I want my photos to be sent to the cloud in real time with a look baked in, and it can just be go there, and then someone can take those files from like the frame.io or Dropbox style thing, and then have it be uploaded for people to download their photos in real time with a look baked in without a computer. And there's like so many little things where I'm like, bro, Lumix is doing so many things that other camera companies aren't doing. What's your take on that?
I think it's absolutely amazing that you could do that. I'm not in my workflow. I don't use real time LUT. I was actually having this discussion with somebody in the comments, I think yesterday, and it's my personal preference is to shoot my everything in log, right? And I go in and I manually dial in everything. And the guy in my comments was the other way around. He completely hates color grading, right? And then he would rather just have a look into the camera so you could just quickly turn it around. And we had this discussion back and forth, and we kind of just came to the consensus that we're both right. And it's depends on your workflow, what your preference is, and what you have to deliver. So, and the overarching thing with Lumix is there's a tool in here for everybody. It doesn't matter your workflow, whatever you do, there's something in these cameras that you're gonna use.
It's always interesting to me because like every time like I hop on someone else's camera, I think I'm gonna make some type of like meme short video about this eventually, where it's like you shoot on someone else's Lumix camera and every single button does something different on each person's camera. Like false colors, you know, great button. I think you have that programmed to your front on your camera. Yeah, I have that programmed on my
top one.
Oh, on the plus minus exposure button. Okay, so we have that programmed to the same button. But like, there's so many tools like that, and I know people that use zebras for or waveform for doing their exposures. I know both of us are in the false color realm where we're using false colors to like see what our exposure levels are at. Like, there's so many tools this camera has. So I guess as we're sort of winding down and landing this plane today, before I ask you the last and final question, where can people check you out and where do you want to send these lovely people? And there'll be links in the description as well.
You could find me on YouTube, which I've been trying to pump out a little more as of recently. It's Cesar Lorca. It might have an underscore, I'm not sure, but it's Cesar Lorca, like an orca whale with an L on it. That's our inside joke over here. And on Instagram, it's Cesar Lorca underscore.
Throw me with that joke. You told me that. I've never said that once in my life. He's bringing up childhood drama that is not needed on my podcast.
It's going to turn into a therapy session real quick, bro.
Bro, I got the white couch right next to me. I'm ready.
Okay, I'm ready to cry, man. but dude, real quick, before we go to the last question, you reminded me about the false color and that tool. In F1, I couldn't really have. I got stopped by the people, and they didn't really want me running a gimbal in some certain areas of the back end of it. So I had to strip it down and not have my monitor and not have like the usual tools that I have, my V mount and everything. So it was just the camera was butt naked, and having that false color in there that you helped me set up. So thank you. It saved the day. It saved the day. Like, I'm not used to working off the tiny little monitor because I'm spoiled and I use my big boy monitors, and it saved the day having that false color in there, especially when I was running my DZO. There's a point that I was using it. It just helped me dial in my exposure the entire time. So yeah, it's life-saving. Some of these things will literally save your work in here. So, but yeah, you just reminded me, so I had to tell you that.
Bro, I got you. So
I love you, man.
Hey, I love you too. We're just homies. Backstage boys are just homies. Anyways, so as we're kind of winding down, the last question I had for you today, obviously there was the S1R, now we have the S1R Mark II. There was the S1 II, or the S1, now we have the S1 II, which in my opinion replaced the S1H. So I'd be curious to hear what your take is on what a potential LUMIX S1H Mark II is going to be, because I feel like everyone online is like, the next camera is the S1H Mark II, and everyone's like, the next camera is the S1H Mark II. And I think it's really funny because I think it would be such a funny joke if LUMIX dropped the S9 Mark II, but that's besides the point. Like, make the S9 Mark II before the S1H. That's besides the point. I think it would be really funny, LUMIX. So if you guys want a funny joke and do some Japan trip, we're down. We're game. But
yeah,
what do you think, and what's your hopes for the LUMIX S1H Mark II, now knowing what we have right now with the S1 Mark II?
My little conspiracy theory that I have running in the background in my head all the time is that LUMIX has been slowly just grabbing every single good video-centric feature, right? And just sharpening that blade to be able to just have it perfectly implemented when this big boy S1H, and I have this other feeling that it's not going to be an S series camera. I think it's going to be its own thing. I think it might be like a new thing and just be like rebranded, but that's besides the point. I think they've been sharpening all these video tools to be able to pick everything good that everybody likes and just put it into this beautiful package, because they're already winning. We're winning. I don't care what anybody says. We're winning when it comes to every video centric tool. I like photographers, but like we're focused on video here. They're gonna put all that into what I assume is gonna be a box style camera. I think like a nice, cinema style body, and that would be nice. I think they should do that, and Other thing that I've really been thinking about, Lumix has been dropping these cameras in pairs, right? S1, we got the S1 II, and then we got the S1 right? And then we have the S5 II, we have the S5 IIX. So my assumption is everybody split so much between wanting internal ND or IBIS. So I have this idea that they might drop the cinema line cameras, which hopefully keep S1H2 because I love that and everybody wants to hear that. And they're going to have one that might be internal ND and one that might be IBIS. So whichever poison you want, you get to choose that. You know what I mean? But that's just my dream world in my head. So,
dude,
I don't know.
I appreciate the dream world. I think it's always fun to like try to predict what's coming next. And I will say, from like someone who's been shooting on Lumix cameras actually since the G7, then G9, and then GH6, yada yada, into the phase detect era, it's been, I feel like, especially with at least the S1 Mark II, it's been like that, like satisfying, like I've waited so long for like the best camera to come out, and now it's here with Lumix. And it's like, you know, I think yesterday, like as we're recording this yesterday, the Sony FX2 rumors are dropping, which is like literally the S5 IIX and a $3,500 camera body, basically, based on rumors. So it's kind of like one of those things where you're like, finally Lumix is like doing something that's like so competitive and so on top, where it's like just have to wait and see what the market really and what like consumers really think about these cameras. But I love the ideas. I love the ideas about like the two cameras being split with the IBIS versus internal NDs. I definitely think that could be a good way to potentially do it with the exact same chassis. I don't know which camera I would choose. That's my hard part.
I think we're such like down Lumix boys that we just get both. You know, our thumbnails would be like this, just two cameras. Which one should we choose?
I will say I would be interested to see if they didn't do that and they just said, hey, we're taking the IBIS out because, you know, true cinematographers don't want IBIS and they want internal NDs. I'd be curious to see what technology they implement with doing electronic stabilization in compensation of the IBIS, because now they have cropless mode. And like imagine like your cropless mode is just your default IBIS in a sense, and then you go to standard and electronic stabilization, and then it's like you have like buttery smooth image stabilization and still have internal NDs. Or the alternative that I've been loving this theory as well is having your IBIS but having drop-in filters that like electronically speak into your camera. So you have a set with you that you carry and drop that sucker in, and then you got that juicy IBIS and internal NDs. Quotes.
Man, I think you should join the engineering team.
Bro, but then I can't speculate anymore. That's the issue.
That's true. Then it's no fun, right?
Yeah, like, and then everyone's gonna be like, Matthew, what do you know? And I'd be like, I know the keys to the kingdom, but I just can't say anything. Talk to you in like 2 years, eh?
Yeah, for real.
Bro, they're like probably masterminding. There's like some guy playing 4D chess at Lumix that's like making like cameras that are coming out in like 6 years for sure. There's someone.
100%.
You know,
100%.
100%. They're forward thinking. I mean, I forgot what camera. I think it was when the GH or when the S5 II got announced, which I want to say that was 2022. They were already working on the S9, which came out in 2024. So,
oh wow.
So end of 2022 to mid 2024, you know, they were already like working on cameras so far ahead down the line because they just have to for all the testing and all the software. But anyways, thanks Cesar for joining me on today's episode. Yeah, it was great having you.
Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on again. I love you.
Love you too.
And I can't wait to see you in person again.
Dude, can't wait to. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this episode and you want to see what Lumix might be put into a cinema body, well, I speculated that with Caleb Hoover. You can check out that episode right there. YouTube recommends you might like this episode right here. Until the next one, guys. Peace.